comment to that,
Yeah.
Mark? Actually, yes, I am the only one. However, there are 8 other circuit judges and 11 associate judges, and I've had it happen with, I don't recall what the incident was, but we had 1 or 2 defendants who were being quite obstreperous, and I just told them, look, if that's the way it's going to be, we're going to start trying the cases. There are other judges around here. I am the supervisor of the civil division, and I can assign them out to trial by simply going to the other judges and saying, listen, I need you to try an asbestos case for me this week. Can you do it? And usually they can because it takes priority. So I understand what you're saying. I do have that opportunity, and I hate to threaten that, and it's something I wouldn't use very often because I don't want to be unfair to any litigant. But if I see that there's a problem, I say, okay, we're going to start trying them.
See, I can't try a case. I'm not allowed to pick juries. I'm not allowed to call witnesses. I'm not allowed to preside over a trial. All I do is the pre-trial. I do everything, including motions in limine, including all exhibits that come into evidence, including which video deposition excerpts come in. The trial judge picks a jury, and in the words of a judge in Galveston named Lonnie Cox, what he needed during his asbestos trial was a Lonnie Cox cardboard cutout doll to put on the bench so he could go back into chambers or play golf or walk the beach or whatever they do in Galveston, Texas. Because the trial judge, once the jury is picked in the Texas system, has little to do other than regulate whether or not a question is leading because all other rulings have been made in advance of the trial. Our cases take between 6 and 7 trial days to try. As a result, maybe sometimes 8, but it's a different system and it's unlike any other. And I sort of created it and sort of didn't. So.
Well, our trial judges do motions in limine, and that's because I guess I was a trial judge long enough to not like when somebody else made a decision that I had to deal with during the course of a trial. But all of the summary judgment motions are finished, and all of the discovery motions are finished, and everything else. And since we reverse bifurcate, a damages group of trials, even 10, never took me more than 5 days to do. And in a whole lot of the cases, we didn't do liability trials because they settled. And if we finally did have to do liability, it might be in 1 or 2 cases, so it didn't take very long altogether.
Oh, Texas law prohibits bifurcation of damages from liability. So I don't even have that sling in my, I'm glad Pennsylvania has seen the wisdom, but the Texas Supreme Court 30 years ago said we couldn't even do that.
See, I'm really glad I'm not a Texan. Actually, I can understand Texan. I just can't. I can understand Texan. I just can't speak it.
I'm glad that I'm a New Yorker, but it's interesting that my colleague from Texas refers to it as, I think you said, judicial duress. I don't look at a settlement conference as duress. I look at a settlement conference as friendly persuasion, so that when everybody leaves the room, people may not be agreeing at that moment, but I hope I've given everyone something to think about. And if I've done that, I've achieved my goal. And Rome isn't always built in a day. Sometimes it takes a couple of meetings to say, okay, settled.
Well, it sounds like the Gestapo interrogator saying, you will settle and you will like it. I mean, this, I'm not suggesting you would ever do that.
But our lawyers, and I've just been back for 8 weeks, so I'm still learning. But the weird thing is that they seem to be in a mode, the plaintiffs and the defendants, of settling on their own. I mean, when I first came back, because I was very involved in settlement it's like this is my second tour of duty. I feel like I'm a war veteran. But on my first tour of duty, I was very intimately involved with the settlement process, and I agree with Judge Heitner. It was more friendly persuasion and let's talk about it. But I have yet in 8 weeks to do any settlement conference, and all but one group, and that group had about 4 cases in it, settled without my help. They seem, the lawyers, to be able to get along enough, and everybody knows the values at this point. I'm hoping I'm right. As I said, it's only 8 weeks versus.
Well, I think everyone agrees with the great virtues of settlement. I think not only the judges, but I'm sure counsel agree. The concern we have is that the settlement comes so late. Everyone knows that most of the cases will settle. Most of the defendants will settle out in all the cases. The cases that go to trial end up trials with perhaps 1 or 2 defendants standing, and the other 30, 35 defendants who are named will all settle out. The concern that we all have is that it's such a waste of all resources to let it go down to the wire in practically every single asbestos case, that there should be some mechanism where the settlement can be brought to fruition earlier. And I have not seen evidence on any of the case management systems, whether it's master calendar, coordination, single judge, hearing all the motions, the discovery, whether that brings the settlement to a conclusion at an earlier date rather than on the eve of trial. Or, as I said, during opening statements or during voir dire.
Judge Burrell, in New York, we have settlement conferences that are designated with each trial group prior to the trial date or to go pick the jury. And we have a special master and Judge Heitler who participate in those settlement conferences months before the actual trial date and those resources being expended. And I think that we've been very successful in resolving most of the cases with most of the defendants and having less cases actually use those resources by actually scheduling those settlement conferences with the court.
Well, that's good to hear. I think there's a different bar culture out in California.
It's also because maybe there isn't a central docket.
I might say bar culture. It's also due to the great influx of lawyers coming in from Texas.
For me.
I was just going to ask the
They
question.
really do travel to Texas. They really do.
Judge Stack, I'm sorry, Judge Stack.
Perry, what is your timing? What is your time from filing to trial date for a mesothelioma case? I mean, what I see in my particular jurisdiction is that it takes them pretty well getting up to the point of the trial to be even ready to know how to discuss settlement, because they're pushed as it is to get all the discovery completed in time.
Well, we have a statute that actually that created the in extremis docket that a person that's dying has to have their case tried within the year. Mm-hmm. So within the framework of the discovery from when you file the case, there are settlement conferences set up.